Remember. Remember us. Remember that we once lived.
Emet-Selch is one of the greatest characters ever written. I think that's a reasonable thing to say. The villain of Shadowbringers, Emet provides the expansion, and 14 as a whole, something unseen in many other aspects of the game, and that is a truly compelling villain. He is beautiful, wonderful, complicated, and so much more. The fans sing his praises, and rightly so. But even still, there are many things that I think are underappreciated about Emet-Selch. Hello Void, this is Eldon, and today we're going to be talking about Emet-Selch. I love that guy so much. Maybe he's even like the best part of 14, I don't know. What I do know is that you should subscribe. Emet would want you to subscribe. Look at that face. That's the face of someone subscribed to this channel, and you could be too. Anyway, let's discuss Best Boy and see what makes him so good. For those of you watching this video who somehow don't know about Emet, or more accurately, just as an excuse to let me gush about him, let's go over who Emet is and what makes him so wonderful. An unsundered Ascian, Emet-Selch is a villain in Shadowbringers. Yet, unlike many other villains, he spends his time not directly opposing us, but working in tandem with us, stepping into a somewhat allied role throughout much of Shadowbringers, only turning against us at the end when our goals diverge. Emet accompanies us for much of the middle part of the narrative, during which we spend so much time getting to know him. We learn of his motivations, his past as an unsundered Ascian, and why he fights to reclaim his past, and the world unsundered, and all of those left behind in it. Later in Endwalker, when we, and spoilers for Endwalker, travel back in time, we meet Emet-Selch prior to his tempering by Zodiark, and his fall from grace. There, we find a headstrong and somewhat rude, but reliable ally, and all the while, he is truly wonderful. Alright, I'll say it, I fucking love Emet-Selch. 30 seconds over? Yeah, I fucking love Emet-Selch. I think his story and writing are some of the best that 14 has to offer. But what makes him such a beloved character? What does he do specifically that makes him stand out even amongst a game where the characters and writing are lauded universally? Well, let's list a few of them out, shall we? The first quality of Emet that makes him such a lovely character is that he is heroic. Emet-Selch truly embodies the age-old mantra of every villain is the hero of their own story. Emet acts for a purpose. He acts for a clear goal, and if it was not so devoid of morality, if you had the ability to adopt his perspective, it might even seem somewhat justified. The way he carries himself holds such purpose, such a attempt at virtue, that we find him compelling. This is not in a happy way. He is certainly no true hero. His goal is evil, or at least some equivalent to it. We know the people of the shards are people, and equally as deserving of life. But his conviction, his true and honest desire to see his past brought to present again, we can't help but feel for him. The next quality that makes Emet-Selch so wonderful is that he is an asshole. His personality is so peculiar, he's snarky, sarcastic, and over all of this heroic bullshit that we, as the Warrior of Light, have going on. It's honestly quite refreshing. He's characterized so well in all of his interactions. His power is shown off, the way he summons Y'shtola back without lifting more than a couple of fingers, the way he will casually show up just to shoot someone in the back. I mean, he could use magic, but why not when you got the gun? Emet is a certified dick, but a dick you gotta appreciate. And he doesn't compromise this. This is not a quality given to him by Zodiark or through time. Certainly he has been tempered and hardened But even back in his past, he's still just an asshole. He's the kind of asshole who will do anything for his friends, and there's nobility in that. And we can see that clearly. The next quality that makes Emmett so lovable is his wariness. He is tired. Underneath his facade and all of his put-on demeanor, he is well and truly tired. There's pain, sorrow, an anger within Emmett that touches the characters and the audience. It permeates every interaction. I imagine in a different game, if we had a quiet moment with him, we would be able to see Emmett looking off in the distance, his eyes skipping past the horizon as he sees a millennia into his past. The way he holds his shoulders while appearing somewhat like a lazy punk is, in reality, shoulders sagged by the endless weight being poured upon them. He is Atlas crushed under the sky, and as we come to our final confrontation with him in Shadowbringers, that weight is ever more clear as he summons up Amarant. We can see the truth of this tiredness, of his belief in the past and his longing for it. Finally, Emet-Selch is under tension. His facade, his wariness, even his heroic side, all of these coalesce together to create a character who is well and truly conflicted. Emmett fights within, a tempering on one side, a desire to achieve his goals, with a doubt all the while that this is for nothing. That the work he spent so long pursuing is either not worthwhile or just unachievable. He is so fervently devoted, yet also resigned in this devotion. He worries and fears. When we get to his display in Amarant, we can see the creations he's made, the echoes of his past, and, especially Hythlodaeus, do not support his actions and actively work against him. Even his own subconscious doubts that what he's doing is the proper course, and so he invites us to end him, to prove our strength over his, the power of our dream over his. And that conflict, that tension, even as we propagate back through the rest of the expansion, has always been there. His fear that all of this is, to some extent, hollow. And that is not something that is ever easily portrayed or even easily written. But with Emmett, it is achieved masterfully. And with that, we can see what makes Emmett so truly wonderful. He's hot, heroic, an asshole, weary, and tense. He's perfect. That by no means is a comprehensive list of the wonderful qualities of Emet-Selch. There are so many aspects of his character, so many moments with him, his history, backstory, and the events that transpire around him that truly breathe life into him and by extension the rest of 14 that he's involved in. But I do think there's one part of Emmett that goes underappreciated. At least I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I want to highlight it here though, not only because I think it makes me appreciate Emmett more, but also because it opens the gateway to a better understanding of 14 as it is, and hopefully as it will be. You see, Void, Emet-Selch is not only a wonderful villain, nor even the best villain. He is, in fact, the perfect 14 villain. Allow me to explain. So, what do I mean when I say Emet-Selch is the perfect villain for Final Fantasy XIV? Here, I am not commenting on the quality of his writing or character, nor am I commenting on the fight we have against him, or even his role in Shadowbringers. No. What I'm talking about is Emet-Selch's thematic significance to the story of 14, of the Light and Darkness saga as a whole. 14, at least up until now, is a story told across over a decade, and throughout, there are thematic connections, through lines, and more, all of which culminate beautifully in a tapestry woven throughout 10 years. 14 may climax with Endwalker, but as we look at it as a whole, we can see that Emmett stands out for the way he plays into the grander themes of 14, and their villains especially. Any discussion of this topic must first start by answering one very important question. What is the theme of Final Fantasy XIV? Obviously, there are a ton of answers to this question. 14 has at least 5 full-length RPG stories inside of it, so there's more than one answer to this question. In fact, any answer you have for this question, as long as you truly believe it, is, at least to some extent, the truth. There is no definitive theme to a work of so many hands and of such magnitude. But one theme I find particularly resonant throughout all of 14 is hope. We are the light pushing against the darkness, the force of change that makes the world a brighter place. 14 is a story of hope struggling against that which would stifle it, which would maintain an era of stagnant malady. We fight for the future, for what could be. Perhaps this is best exemplified with the Scions. The Scions are not a faction who utilize the power of friendship. Instead, they utilize the power of hope. Each of the Scions represents a different struggle for the future. Each one pushes for a brighter tomorrow in a different way, but they all move in the same direction. It's these bonds that bind them. This is what keeps them together as one cohesive unit, that they all push forward. That's why when we face the Endsinger and the Scions lend us their powers, it's not with the power of friendship. They don't say, teamwork makes the dream work. No. They say, light the way. Because that's what we are. We are the lights in the darkness. We are the motion in stillness. We are moving forward as a force for change and as a force for good. And thusly, we can also find that each of 14's villains are all subject to the opposite. They act under stillness. If we take it that the core theme of 14 is hope, then each expansion we must battle against those who would fight against hope. That would fight against progress and change. And I find this to be relatively true, save perhaps ARR. Each expansion of 14 has us go against some entity that keeps things under stasis, that keeps tyranny or dread or some equivalent in place. Heaven's Word, we fight against the ancient grudge between dragons and Ishgardian. This constant hatred is a poison, and one that can only be overcome when we move on from the past, when we no longer get stuck in the endless tolls and instead work together to bring a brighter tomorrow. Nidhogg is a wraith of hatred, aimed solely at the past. He is an ancient grudge that will not be released, and Estinian has to take that on, for he too is the modern embodiment of that grudge. When he picks up Nidhogg's eye and becomes Nidhogg, they are one and the same, and they always have been thematically. And when we vanquish Nidhogg and free Estinian of his grudge, we relieve him and the story of that burden, and release Ishgard from the endless cycle of resentment, allowing it to step forward into the future. In Stormblood, we fight through 2 revolutions, and the axis of that revolution is not building up armies or infiltration. Those things do happen, but what really moves the needle is that we rally the people out of their fear, one instilled by cruelty in both Alamigo and Doma. The people there have been subjected to terror unimaginable and are so frozen in place, so afraid of more pain, that they can't move forward, they can't rise up. But with hope in the future, they can act. They move against Xenos, the ultimate embodiment of cruelty and the malaise of empire, and strike a blow against the Garlean Empire as a whole, who become powerless against it, eventually falling apart merely at the concept of hope. In Shadowbringers, Vothri brings a new type of stillness, a new way to keep people from pushing towards a brighter tomorrow. He is a source of opulent passivity, that even as the world burns, as long as we are fat and happy, we'll all be fine. The people of Yulmore sit idly by while their world is consumed by light because it is comfortable, because it's better to give up than to fight with hope against the end. Finally, this culminates in us battling the ultimate embodiment of despair in Endwalker. The Endsinger is literally a force that states that tomorrow is not worth seeking, that the only thing lying ahead is despair, and we fly to the literal edge of the universe to push against that, to say that tomorrow is worthwhile. In each expansion, the villain fights for a past to stay locked in, to say that tomorrow is not worthwhile. Either they stay locked in time to never move forward, to sit idly on cruelties, on hatreds, on pleasures, or to simply state that despair is easier than hope. And in each case, the Scions push against that, and hope triumphs. This is perhaps the ultimate statement of 14, that a brighter tomorrow is possible if we act together and push against the forces that keep us from achieving it. And I find that message to be worthwhile. But where does Emet fit into this? Emet-Selch goes beyond fighting for stillness. He does not fight to keep the status quo in place, no. Emet is the perfect villain for 14 because he is not opposed to the Scion's goal. He is not opposed to the theme and purpose of the story. He is its opposite. Emet-Selch and the Ascians fight for something, but they do not fight for the future. They fight for the past. Each of the single expansion's villains is stuck in their own way. As we enter these new lands, we find them trapped in stasis, but the Ascians? They do not want things to stay the same. They want things to go back. Their goal is to return us to the glorious ancient times, to a world unsundered, to revive the souls of those departed and reunite everything into one perfect past. That is why they are the multi-expansion villains, because they are not simple obstacles. They're not something to be overcome. They are a force that struggle against the Scions in a direction opposite to them. This is Emet's struggle. He is a villain who questions the themes of 14 in a way no other villain does, because his ideal future is the past. Not in some cursory way or some static way, but he pushes for something that was lost. And that is not a goal the Scions could ever fight for. We are the future. We are progress. We are the dawn. And Emet seeks the exact opposite. There's something I find very interesting about the magic of 14, about how it characterizes light and dark as stillness and motion, and those fundamental forces push and pull against each other. Each character can be aligned with those virtues, with those aspects. In Shadowbringers, we become the warrior of darkness, not because we change up. I mean, we go to the first and we act basically the same as we would in any other point, but because we reframe what we are and what we do. Darkness is the force of motion. It is essentially the necessary force for progress. And that is who we are. That is what we, the former warrior of light, does. And so we embrace the mantle of the warrior of darkness, truly realizing that we fight against the stagnancy that grips these places in turmoil, and that we fight against it for a brighter tomorrow. When we look at Emet, Hades, we can see that he is also aligned with darkness. Perhaps this is a side effect of him being tainted by Zodiark, but since we go back to Elpis, we can see that he was Hades long before he was Emet-Selch, and that his form remains unchanged even in the past. Emet-Selch, by nature, is heroic. He is someone who acts for the future. He is aligned with the dark and aligned with forward progress. And yet, in Shadowbringers, we find him acting as the ultimate force for stagnation, as a twisted dark that pushes backwards, not towards the future, but towards an idealized past. If we, the Scions, the Warrior of Darkness, are the ultimate force for progress of darkness, then Emet-Selch, despite being aligned with the dark, has taken the position of the ultimate champion of light. He is a warrior of light, a force of ultimate stillness, of never progress, an act which goes against his very nature. He's tired, and no wonder he's wary, no wonder he's in conflict. Perhaps that was Zodiark's taint, this inversion of his true nature. And that's why he is so sad, why he is so destroyed by time outside of the simple wear of ages. Emet-Selch has been turned against his very essence and put into a position where he becomes the antithesis of us. It's brilliant writing and makes him so wonderful in my eyes. I'm glad I took the time to verbalize this. I know the love for Emet in this community is strong, and my love for him is undeniable, and I'm glad I'm finally able to take some time and say why I believe he is so thematically relevant for 14 as a whole. This resonance really just makes Emet-Selch so much hotter. There's one last thing I do want to touch on in this video, because considering all the context I've just given, this is perhaps the best place to talk about it, and that is where this leaves 14 now. Specifically, how can the writers separate this new saga that we're stepping into, whatever it may be, from the past, from the saga of Light and Dark, and the themes that suffused it? To put it simply, my hope and my expectation is that the future of 14 changes the fundamental question asked by each expansion. No longer will each be based on the struggle of the Scions fighting for the future and some enemy fighting for a static past, but instead we will shift to two forces fighting for different futures. In the newer expansions, in the newer stories, we've seen two villains, 2.5, who fight for their new idealized future. Golbez seeks a future where the Voidsent can die in peace, and yet to do that, he would burn the source and everything else. His vision for the future is compromise, his hope twisted. Then we have Calyx, the newest villain, who seeks transhumanism, a new path where death and birth are not the primary axis for human change. Yet he would throw away everything, even our very souls, to achieve this. And in the process, he loses sight of humanity itself. In both of these cases, the characters don't fight for something lingering in their past or holding on in the present, but instead, they fight for their own vision of the future. Hopefully, this is the direction that the devs decide to go on in the future, because I think it poses many new questions, has many new scenarios and conflicts that would give this new saga an identity all its own. The one new villain that kinda gums up this is Sphene. I mean, a whole new zone dedicated to the literal memories being held in stasis is pretty old-pilled, but the conflict of her and Wuklamot as queens fighting for their own idealized version of what it means to be a good ruler muddies the water on whether this is an old theme story or a new theme story. On top of this, there's a lot of leeway, especially so early on in a saga. I really doubt that the intentional theming that we see in the saga of Light and Dark was set out so explicitly until my goat, Ishikawa, came along and wrote Shadowbringers and Endwalker, which do the majority of the heavy lifting, recontextualizing the themes of Heavensward and Stormblood, and bringing them to a cohesive conclusion. But 14 still has many opportunities to expand what it's doing and give a new take on what the villains of 14 can be. Emet-Selch is the perfect villain for the Light and Darkness saga. He stood apart as the ultimate force acting in opposition to the Scions. Where each other villain was an obstacle, Emet-Selch was an enemy, and he capitalized on the true promise of the Ascians, acting to truly oppose the Scions on a thematic level. And truthfully, I don't think 14 will ever have a villain like Emet again. But if they move forward and look to new possibilities, perhaps we can have a villain who's even better, in a new way. I suppose only time will tell. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you think about 14 in a new way. If you have any thoughts or any praises for Emet, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And while you're there, like and subscribe. I love seeing big number go up, and big subscribe make me very happy. Alright, well, that all being said, it's a long road out there, so take it easy. Eldon out.